Welcome back to another episode of Self-Care Saturday with ND Jones. And I am always happy, always proud to introduce my guests or to have guests. I always say, I don't know why I say introduce because they're going to introduce themselves. Before we get started, I just want to remind you that like the video, to subscribe to the channel, to make sure that you get reminders so you know the next time we have another episode of Self-Care Saturday with Indy Jones that you don't miss it. But each episode airs twice a month, so bi-monthly at 11 a.m. So stay tuned for that. So for today's session, we have two beautiful women, two lovely ladies, two very smart and skilled people. I'm giving them all these kudos, but it's absolutely true. And we're going to begin with Rosalind Rice, and she's going to introduce herself to the audience. Rosalind?
Thank you so much, Natalie. My name is Rosalind Rice. I am an educational consultant focusing on building teacher leaders, early leaders, and current leaders in the K-12 settings. That work is very is a passion of mine because I believe in order to change what happens for all of our children, we have to make a positive impact on the adults. So through my work, I work to move and shift thinking of the adults that I coach so we can shift their ways of being and hopefully then shift their ways of doing so that we can create high quality, equitable spaces for each and every child.
Very nice. Very well said. And you were a principal before this, right?
Yes, I was a
About that?
principal for 11 years. I've had every position in the educational ecosystem from teacher to principal, district leadership, and a couple of national organizations supporting state education agencies as also education intermediaries to support children around their social, emotional, and academic needs.
Beautiful. Thank you for adding the extra bit. It's a whole lot more there. Perfect. And then we have the indomitable Sapphire J. Blue. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, my name is Sapphire J. Blue, and what I do is I read your book and I interview you about the characters. The name of my show is Conversations with Sapphire J. Blue. You can Google me and find past shows on Blog Talk Radio. I'm also now on Instagram. This is something new to me, where now the readers get a chance to see what the author looks like, not only hear their voices. And what I basically do is read your book and pick it apart and talk to you about your characters, your theme, your goals, and also what you plan to do next. I also ask some of the seasoned authors to give new authors advice on how to get started. And I also ask some of the new authors to give people who want to write some advice. I try to pick indie authors. I haven't had any. I've had a couple of authors that write for Harlequin come on my show, but I haven't had any famous authors. Most of my interviews are free for the authors. The only time I charge is if they are booked by their publisher or promoters. And I only started doing that because I realized that people were charging people to come on my show. So I figure if we're going to make money, I'm going to make money also. But it's a free show. And I really try to introduce the world to indie authors because I feel like, number one, there's so many authors of color that the world doesn't know exist. I also feel that everyone has a right to read. And once you learn to read, that's something that no one can ever take from you. So my motto is read, 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 which I always say at the end of my show. And it's once you read, you can go to any world that you want to, because there's a book about every world.
That's good. That's great. And I can definitely testify to that and that Sapphire and she's read many, probably I think most of my books, and I've gone to her show and we've had really nice discourse. And as I mentioned before we had started, she loves romance. So if you are an author out there and you're looking for someone who will deep dive into your book, who will give you a platform to share that hard work with the world and really have a nice conversation about it, and extra if it involves romance, Sapphire J. Blue is definitely your person. Okay, so we're going to begin with our first question. And again, all the questions are taken from my color of my resilience, the color of our resilience, the self-care got a journal for Black women and Black men. And you see the cover in the background here. So that's what all my guests answer questions from. And we're just going to start with one. And Sapphire, since Rosalind went first, we're going to begin with you. So the first question, what does it mean to be a Black woman or African American, depending on how you define yourself based on race? But what does it mean to be a Black woman in the 21st century for you?
I feel like to be a Black woman in the 21st century, it's still a struggle. I feel like my grandmother struggled when she was in the middle of Jim Crow. She came from a family of slaves and Indians or indigenous people. And I felt it was a struggle. And I feel like some of our struggles are the same. I feel like we're still trying to get people to understand that Black women are smart, we are strong, and we are human. I think a lot of times we are not treated like humans, we're not thought of as humans. And I think that sometimes I feel the way people speak about us is like we're animals and we're human beings.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. What about you, Rosalind? What does it mean for you to be a woman in the 21st century?
Oh, being a Black woman, it is a gift and it is a challenge. I see the gifts that Black women have availed them, have just shown this world in the 21st century. We've shattered glass ceilings as CEOs. We are Vice President of the United States. We are millionaires and billionaires. We're entrepreneurs and the like. So I look at that and I'm so grateful for the strength that came from our foremothers, came from our ancestors. And I look at us and say, my God, we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. I see that. And I also see and feel the challenge and the burden of it all, because I feel like many times you have to hide pieces of yourself in order to be successful, in order to be or have a semblance of love, in order to exist day to day, because I know many times we just feel like screaming, like all the time. The trauma is in our DNA, and I still don't think we know how to effectively address it. There's a whole bunch of tools that we have, but you still got to figure out what the mixture is. And then it just makes me so sad that we even have to do that. And I agree with Sapphire. I feel like you can't win. Even though you're winning, you can't win. So if I'm a CEO and I'm walking in there with the with the bravado of confidence that if a man exuded it, there'd be, oh my goodness, look at, they're just walking in. You know,
Doors would open.
yeah, the doors will open. And I mean, we have to bust doors down or build our own houses.
Yeah.
And that is traumatizing. That is so tough. In addition to being, if you a wife and a mother and a sister and a friend and a champion for your people, like we have to represent every day our entire race.
Right. So I have a follow-up question. I meant to warn you about the follow-up questions, but it's everything that you can answer. So I know, Roz, that you have a young daughter, and I know, Sapphire, that you have a young adult son.
Yes.
And so I'll ask you this, Sapphire, and then I'm going to go back to Roz. So for you, again, being a Black woman, what was it like for you to raise a young Black boy who's now, knock on wood, we have to say it, thankfully
Yes.
he was able to grow into a young Black man, and
Yes.
so from that perspective, being a mother of a young Black boy and now a young Black man, which still has its own layers of anxiety, let's just say, what did that look like for you? How did that
Number
feel?
one, my son grew up in a multicultural environment. I always tried to make sure that he was around different cultures and different people because I didn't want him to be stereotyped as an angry Black man. So when you put them around different cultures, I put my son in every sport except for football so that he could be well-rounded. And I always wanted him to know that women of any color are to be treated with respect. But also, I always tried to let him know what society says about Black women is not true. And I remember him coming to me as a young adult saying, after he was out on his own, I used to think you were the angry Black woman because you used to always come down on me so hard. And then he said, when I got out in society, I realized you're not angry at all. You were just trying to hold me and to try to teach me.
Mm-hmm.
My son is very light.
Yeah.
And a lot of times he's, people think he's Spanish. And some people will say, oh, are you mixed? And he's not. But I say to him, and I always said this, especially when high school, when he started hanging out with his friends, and he had friends of all different cultures. I said, when the police come, you're Black. And always remember that, because that's how they're going to see you. They're not going to see you as the other cultures. And he went away with his dad and he went into a Starbucks, and that was his first prejudice experience. And he called me after and he was like, she didn't even want to help me. And she said, we don't serve your kind in this Starbucks. And this was 3 years ago. So this wasn't like 1925.
And he's young anyway, so.
Right. So he was just like so shocked. And it's so funny because his aunt is white. So she went there and, confronted them. And it was a big thing in that town for that Starbucks. But it was like, when he experienced it, he said, when you used to always tell me, be careful, when the cops come, they're going to think you're Black. He said, he said, I always thought you were exaggerating.
Mm-hmm.
He said,
we wish it was an exaggeration, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
He said, but when I experienced it myself, he said, Mom, it was scary.
Yep. Yeah. Scary.
And I think as a young mother of color, when I had him, I wasn't that young. I was in my 30s. And I just turned 30, and I had this little light baby in the middle of Washington Heights, where it's all Spanish. So number one, everybody thought I was the nanny. Then I had to be Dominican because Dominicans come in all colors. So that was it. And I had to constantly tell people, no, I'm Black. And as you go through life with this son, I remember my girlfriend, who's the same color as him, was picking him up from school. And one day I took off work early to go pick him up, and they said, oh, he left with his mother. She comes and picks him up every day. So the next morning, I went to the principal and I said, the after school program never asked my sister. It was my girlfriend, but I said, they never asked my sister for ID. And the principal, who was of non-color, said, what do you mean? I said, because my sister's been picking up my son every day and they thought that was his mother.
Yeah. Well, Roz, in her school, that would have never have happened. not with this former principal. So Roz, for you, what is it, how does it feel? Like, or are there certain conversations that you think you have to have with your daughter? I know she's still very young, but what is it really, what's that plan look like for you being a Black woman raising a young Black girl?
So I'm very, let me go back. So I grew up in Connecticut, so not Richie, Connecticut, very urban, gritty Bridgeport, Connecticut. And so grateful for that opportunity because I grew up with people of all ethnicities, and I thought life was like that outside as well. And when I went to college, it wasn't like that at all. I went to a PWI, predominantly white institution, and I was like, oh, it's true. All Black kids do sit together back in the cafeteria. So that was very interesting. It was a very hard experience. And when I got married, we moved to Prince George's County, which is, I mean, it's Wakanda. I love it. Everybody Black. And you see the range of socioeconomic status, hues, all of that. So I want my daughter to love everything about herself, to love her beautiful Black self, to love her natural hair, to love her pretty brown skin, to love her mind, to love her body, and see that being Black and being African American is a gift. So we made conscious choices. She goes to public school. She's in a magnet school, but all of her teachers are Black. All of her classmates are Black. She doesn't know. Well, I'll take that back. She's very savvy, and she listens to us converse about the outside world, but she sees a lot. It's just her. So Sydney has made a whole bunch of connections regarding race and ethnicity in America that we also help her to make sense of. Not going to work to make choices for her, but I work to help her to make sense of for herself. But I want her to love her beautiful Black self. I told her when it's time to choose colleges, it's still a long way away, you going to Howard or Harvard. It's one of the two. But so it ain't no in between. And we specifically chose to live here, her schools, where she's going to go to school, because she's going to be out in the world with other ethnicities when she becomes an adult out of college. And I want her to move in this world with a crown and not a question mark.
Yes.
So that is my goal for her. So she is smart. She's important. She speaks 2 languages. I just love all of it. And we make very deliberate decisions from her extracurricular activities, her schooling, her church. She has a whole support system of people that look like her, because I want her to know that she can believe in us, trust us, we're diverse, we're not a monolith, and that this community will take care of her.
Mhm.
And we are producing the best, and she is the best. So yeah, I sit and watch her bop around, and she definitely has that crown on her head. And I am in amazement at just how confident she is and how much she uses her voice, because that I didn't have that at 10 years old. Hell, I didn't have it at 25 years old. So just to see this, I can't wait to see what she does in this world.
But think about what you both said. And as a parent, I can relate. I have a daughter. She actually just turned 20. She just turned 20 on October 12th. And she was like, I don't want to turn 20. She wasn't ready to leave her teens, but she's at college, she's a sophomore, and she's already out those teens. You know, she just wasn't, she just thought she wasn't ready. And then we have a son, he's in graduate school in Memphis. So what I hear is a lot of what my husband and I did as well. But what you both said about making conscious, deliberate decisions to either expose your children to certain people, certain experiences, certain places, because you wanted to build certain ideas or understandings of them, or actually sharing those ideas, trying to protect them in a certain way. Like you said, building their emotional intelligence, building their social intelligence, making sure they have a really clear lens of what it means to be a young Black man in this society. And like you said, we shouldn't have to do that. It is absolutely unfair that we have to have certain types of conversations with our children, but we understand what it could be a lot worse if we do not prepare them as best that we can.
Yes.
But I think as parents, we definitely have to make those decisions and be conscious and deliberate to put them on the best possible path to negotiate this world. So let me ask you another question, and I believe I'm going to begin with Rosalind this time. What words, images, and or people come to mind when you think of the word resilience? Words, images, or people when you think of the word resilience?
That is such a good question. Resilience. Maya Angelou, and I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings. This Maya and Still I Rise. Just a phoenix that we have to constantly rise from ashes. We have to constantly rebuild. And I don't necessarily see it as bouncing back, because I think when you bounce back, you can be damaged, that you come back with strategy. So it's not like I'm coming back, that I'm gonna reflect, strategize, and reemerge as something different, even if it's nuanced, in order to succeed.
Yeah. But that goes back to being deliberate,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of what we're talking about with this resilience and self-care. We're saying that you have to have a plan. You have to be really deliberate about what it is that you do as
Definitely.
far as self-growth. Yeah. And
Definitely.
and Jeanette, what about you? What words, images, or people come to mind when you think of the word resilience?
So I was thinking while Rosalind was talking, and I was thinking like Shaka Zulu and the Zulu Nation.
Mm.
I was thinking of Africans, period. If we look at it in life, we see that we were, as Africans, great warriors. Then they portrayed us in the movies as like animals. But now when you look at it, everybody wants to go to Africa. Everybody wants to be African. African music is back. African culture is back. After African clothing, the way we carry ourselves, we're proud to be part of the African nation. I feel like the way, I'm going to say God brought it back to the first people are the main people again.
Right.
And I think it's so amazing when I remember being in high school and the first African, real pure African girl that I met at the school, and how we all just admired her because of her clothes, the way she could talk different languages. You know, she would bring in food on culture days and we would all want to taste it, because it was just like, this is where we come from.
Right. It's
This
like
is
it's
what it
part
is.
of us. And
Yes.
we don't know after the plantation, after the slave ships, we don't know anything.
Right.
Like being able to touch and see where our four fathers came from, like you feel like you could just taste the strength.
Yes. I have friends from my church that are from Sierra Leone. And other Africans have told me Sierra Leone is where they escaped the people who were slaves, caught. They went there to hide in the jungles of Sierra Leone, not to be brought on the slave ships. So they say that they call that anti-slave place. Because if you were trying to escape not to go on the slave ships, you tried to get to Sierra Leone because you could hide in the bush.
So Jeanette, sorry, Sapphire. So
That's okay.
yeah, I know, right?
That's okay.
So I'm gonna ask this question for both of you, but your story about Sierra Leone is really a story about, that resilience. So this is my question for both of you, and it's two ways. You can just answer one, but I pose both questions.
Mm-hmm.
So describe a time in your life in which you felt either truly resilient. So that story about Sierra Leone, they were being truly resilient. Or describe a time in your life in which maybe you just wasn't as resilient as you wanted or needed to be. So just
I'm
one or
gonna,
the other. Yeah.
I'm gonna say in my life, I'm divorced. And I remember my marriage. I left this house in a limousine in a white dress. And I remember coming back in a cab with a kid.
Hmm.
And I remember telling my mom, I feel like the whole world is laughing at me.
Mm.
But I see the resilience is because I got the best job on this block. And I stayed there for 28 years. And this neighborhood helped raise my son. They knew him on sight because when they saw him, they saw me. When they saw me, they saw him. And they all like chipped in to help me raise my son. And it wasn't the whole world is laughing at me, it's the world is your village. And it takes a village to raise your child. So now that he's grown, and when he comes back to visit, they're all like, hi, hi. And they're telling him stories that they remember, him being 2 years old, me taking him around. And I feel like that's my bounce back.
Mm-hmm.
I left here as a champion. I might have came back broken. Now I'm a champion again.
Yeah.
Mm.
And you make a good point, and I'm gonna still let Roz answer this question. So it's not a question, but I just wanted to comment on what you said. Because you talked about community, and in the book I do have a section on like the woman with helping hands, the man with helping hands, but it really looks like the importance of community, whether it's the community as far as your neighborhood community, whether it's a community at your place of employment, whether it's whether if you're involved in some type of organization, if it's at school. The whole point is that we are members of various communities, and those communities serve different needs. And if you put yourself in the right communities, they can be a strength. They can help with your resilience. They can be examples of your self-care or ways of engaging in your self-care.
Yes.
So I just wanted to highlight that, and it was really important. So what about you, Roz, a time in your life in which you felt either truly resilient or you struggled with your resilience?
There's so many times where you struggle. Disappointments. I so Sydney is our miracle baby, and we struggle to get pregnant. So the first time we got pregnant, I miscarried in my second trimester. It was devastating. I had to be hospitalized. I almost died. I went septic, and but those two little guys saved my life. So my angels. But it was hard. It was hard to find myself again. I felt the same way. It was right after we announced that we were expecting, because we thought we were safe. We were out of the first trimester. And I was so embarrassed and ashamed, and broken, absolutely broken. And I had to figure out what to do. I had to, how to pull it together. So I had to take some additional time off, just to reconcile the fact that I'm not going to be a mother to these beautiful little boys, and almost lost my life, and I don't know how to move forward. And therapy helped a lot. So I had to put tools together for myself to rebuild and redefine who I was.
Yeah. And I have so many thoughts there. One, thank you for sharing that. I know that's painful. I know it's clearly close to your heart and very personal. And I thank you for sharing it, not only for those reasons, it's because that's true for other people as well. It's true for other people. And so that's part of the reason why I really like to have these conversations, why I'm doing this, why I wrote the book, because we really need to start to talk about these things, pull back the layers of our hearts and our minds, because whether we talk about it or not, we're living through these experiences. And so what really struck me, when I think you said that you were ashamed or embarrassed, and it just made me think about how we define what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a female, that you would feel that way. And we can almost probably figure that those aren't words that probably your husband maybe would have said, or other men, because of how their role, their kind of like this gender role is defined in society. That's really what struck me, because I think we tie so much in how we define womanhood into whether we are able to be a mother or not just the choice, but the physical capacity to have a child, to bring a child to term. Am I on the right track or wrong?
No, you're absolutely on the right track.
Yes. And I think with women, we always feel like we have to explain.
Like it was our fault.
I say it on my show all the time. As women, we always feel like we have to explain. Like, I'm learning as I get older, we talk too much.
Yes.
Men don't explain. Your husband would say, we lost the baby, that's it. The way he said it, nobody would ask a question. Nobody would ask what happened. Maybe quietly, they'll be like, what happened? I don't know. He said they lost the baby, that's it. Nobody would question. But as women, we feel like we got to give the details. We got to give the emotions. And that comes from us being a nurturer. And that comes from our natural instincts to want to explain.
Yeah.
And I think as well, especially Black women,
Mm-hmm.
that we around having babies, that we are just fertile and hypersexualized and all of that. And they're like, what do you mean? You need help having the baby. What's going on?
Mhm.
What are you doing? So you're shamed for that
Yeah.
when it's more so than not. Um, and then yeah, you when something like that happens, you do feel like you have to explain and 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 you're seeking understanding as well as seeking to be
Right.
understood.
Or seeking forgiveness in some type of way.
Oh yes. Oh, thank you for that. Yes.
Yeah. And it's not even there. But I think sometimes you feel like you have to forgive yourself, right?
Mhm.
That maybe you wasn't
Mm-hmm.
strong enough, you wasn't whatever, right?
Yep.
And you share one strategy, and it's huge. You said that you sought medical or professional help for us, I think like therapy.
Yes.
Would you mind sharing maybe anything else that went on as far as your resilience to help pull you out, to take you from where you were in that dark place to, back to a light where where you could be functioning again, where you kind of
Mm-hmm.
felt like emotionally and maybe psychologically whole again, or at
Mm-hmm.
least on that path?
Oh yeah. So prayer, of
Yeah.
course. I joined mothers groups
Mhm.
of miscarriage and infant loss to help. I also worked really hard to find answers, like to figure out what happened.
Mhm.
It was very pro and became an advocate for my care. And so I was like, I'm going to make sure I know what's the what. I'm not just going to take these doctors' word for it. I'm going in knowing just as much. And I'm going to advocate for myself. And, now I go to the doctor. I'm like, yeah, I know it's wrong. I know it's right. I know it's up, it's down. What's what? Oh, you've been researching. Yep. And
Yeah.
not no Google research, straight up medical research. I'm a smart woman.
Mhm.
So don't play with me. I got good insurance. So
Yeah.
so yeah, at that all like it helped to put like a salve on my spirit and soul.
Mhm.
And through the research and advocacy, I felt like I had some more control back.
I'm so glad you said that, because that's exactly what I was going to pull back. That a lot of what we do, you need to feel that we're in control and actually kind of like
Mm-hmm.
be in control. You can't be in
Mm-hmm.
control of everything. We know that. But where we can, we should. And I think that's really part of that self-care. We need to be really deliberate and conscious about adding pieces to our lives where we need, or shoring up some other areas, or continuing to do what's really working for us, and not to be afraid or ashamed or embarrassed to ask for help. And help can come in a lot of different packages, and from a lot of different areas and people. And you both mentioned, since we talked about this, and I'm not sure who needs to go first, but I'm going to say Sapphire is going to go first. And what I want to talk about, um, we talked a lot about gender and the role of women. So, Sapphire, when you were a kid, what lessons did you learn about feelings and emotions? If you could remember back to that, what were you really taught, whether directly or indirectly in your household, about feelings and emotions?
Okay, so I grew up in two households, I'll say.
Okay.
I had my family in Jersey, my mother's family, and I had my stepfather and my mom. So every summer I went to Jersey from June. I think my mom took us straight from the first last day of school. I think we just went straight in the car to my grandmother's. And I lived with my grandmother from 1 to 5. My mom only kept me on the weekends because she had to work. So I learned, number one, in both houses, I was a princess. I was the oldest grandchild. I was a little girl. My uncles told me from young that I am precious. I am number one. I think it took a while growing up for me to remember that. And I think it took me to get to my 50s to really go back to I'm the queen and I'm number one. But I grew up like thinking the world does revolve around me and they just really need to adjust. So, because my family, my mom always did the best she could. My grandmother's family, my uncles and stuff, they always treated me like I was so wonderful.
So what did any of that tell you? So if you think about it now, so what did they show you about feelings and emotions though? How did that come out?
I was always allowed to say whatever I felt. And I think that was a problem because as I got older, they told me to scale it down. But when I was younger, it was like, express yourself, tell what you feel. If something happens, open up. Neither family believed in secrets. So it was like, come and talk, tell what happened, be open about it.
Okay.
Always tell people how you feel. You know, don't keep things inside. The world needs to know you have a voice. Use it.
Nice. Good, good. What about you, Rosalind? What lessons did you learn about emotions or feelings when you were a kid?
So I am the third in a family of 4 children. My mom is a very strong woman, and my mom was doing a lot of this work on her own, raising us. So I, maybe it's birth order, but I felt like I wanted to fly under the radar and be quiet because I didn't want to upset my mom, and not because like I love my mother and I know she's our protector, and I knew my mom was working 2 jobs and I was not trying to upset the apple cart
Stir the
with
pot.
anything, right? Um because it's all hard. It was so hard. So, kept my head down, did what she asked me to do. Um I don't My brothers and sisters, we are very loving towards each other. But I don't remember. My mom is very stoic, and I think that's just how she was raised.
Yeah.
And she did her best to do better by us by ensuring that we were loving towards each other. Um, she was tired. So yeah, I don't think I didn't have a space to, like, looking at my daughter, I didn't have the space to talk and hang out with my mom and ask all these questions. And or my mom come and ask me all these questions like I do with her. Because she didn't have the time.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think I've learned much more in my second 20 years of life on
Sure,
how
exactly.
to express myself,
Mhm.
how to be bold, that it's okay to cry,
Yes.
um, that I don't have to be nice all the time. Um, like someone said years and years ago, they're like, yeah, I think you'll struggle as a leader because you act like Big Mama, that you're always nice, you're always accommodating. In my mind, I was like, well, what is wrong with that? I'm not here to, like, if that's my persona, that's my persona. And there are a whole bunch of different ways to lead instead of being a hard ass.
Sure.
And
You don't have to be that mean Black woman.
right. I was like, I don't have to be that person. And I was still successful, but that stuck with me for a long time. And it was another Black woman who said it to me.
Yeah. I mean, you actually, and we don't necessarily have to talk about it, but in the book, you went from one point to another, meaning in the book, I ask people to reflect on their lessons learned as far as their feelings and emotions from how they grew up, which is exactly what you ladies express. But then that other piece is, what is it that you believe now? And so and so you wind up actually answering both and answering the first question, because what I heard when I was listening to you, but also what I picked up on when I was looking at you, because I could see you're thinking through it,
Mm.
you made that shift. And I think maybe because it was maybe easier because you already talked about your daughter. And so when I was listening to you, and I was wondering if you also picked up on the fact that how you and your husband have chosen to raise your daughter is just a little bit that I heard is, probably pretty
Oh,
different than
it's
maybe how
radically
you
different. And we
know,
were very intentional on doing that we want her to be expressive of love and
yeah,
accepting of love and able to question and use her voice because she has opinions. I mean,
yeah.
she alive, so
Right.
um
But you
and
know the importance, but because of your experience coming up, you understood the
exactly.
importance of what it meant to be, let's say, silence. And I'm sure that wasn't what your mother intended, but that may have been the
Mm-mm.
result.
Mm-hmm. It's like, children are seen, not heard.
Oh yeah, I remember my grandmother definitely saying that.
Stay out of grown
Definitely
folk
saying that.
business,
Yep,
all
yep,
of that. And she hears everything. So I'm
yep.
gonna process it with her.
And
And
your mother cried.
oh yeah,
Your mother
definitely.
cried.
She just never let us see it.
Exactly. So you didn't even have to think about it. So if we pull back the layers of what it means, maybe as far as how she looked at strength and maybe the image that she felt that she needed to present to her children,
Mhm.
but that
Mhm.
also meant that her needs weren't being fully met
Oh,
either,
exactly.
you know?
Exactly. And like my mom is one of my best friends. We talk about everything. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that my
Yeah,
mother is just unpacking
yeah,
in her 76 years of life.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and I'm honored to help her unpack it. And I'm sad that it took this long for her to be
Ah,
able to feel safe enough to do so.
and don't we see that, Jeanette?
Yeah.
We see
I
that.
want to use, you brought up some great points. I remember growing up with friends who couldn't, my mom always had that, you come and talk to me about anything. And my friends used to say sometimes, oh, we don't want to tell you because you're going to go back and tell your mother. Because my mom was and still is my best friend. And I do tell her a lot of things, and I'll say, I'm telling you, you better not tell their mother. But let me tell you what's happening. And I think I saved some of my friends from very tragic things because I told my mother, and my mother found a way to ease it to their mother.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But it was, I like that you said your mother's starting to live now, because we think about how many people go on from life and never get a chance. And that's, I think, was so great that she's getting a chance to go out and live her life.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you both. So let's talk a little bit about self-care. And in your story, Roz, you shared some of your self-care, and with that story, it wasn't small self-care. It was something that
Mhm.
literally probably saved your life,
Mhm.
right? Really
Mhm.
saved your life, saved your marriage, all of that stuff, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So, talk to us about what you do now, because in the book I look at 7 different types, and I just kind of list them, and depending on what you look up, there may be different ones. And I say this before, some may give you a list of 5 types of self-care, some may give you 8 or 10, but I outline 7. And there's different ones like professional self-care, psychological, emotional self-care, financial self-care. I think that's important. Spiritual, and they don't necessarily mean religion. I know both of you
Mhm.
are Christian, you mentioned that, but it just can be spirituality in general. So there's different types of self-care. So what does it look like in your life, Ross? Did I go first? Was she supposed to go
No,
first? I can't
Yeah,
no,
remember.
I'm
she's supposed to
good.
go first.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. So this pandemic was the time was a gift. And so one thing I worked around physical self-care. So I changed my diet totally, and I began running. So walking into running. So now I run almost daily, and found communities like Black Girls Run that encourage me, and other workout communities um, that I can share my struggles and triumphs and all of that. So that helped tremendously, as well as um, just what you feed, but how I feed myself, and that this is and understanding that my body's a temple. Um, so I eat much cleaner, and as a result was able to lose 70 pounds over the course of the pandemic.
Wow.
And I've kept the
Whoa,
majority of it off. It'll be a year next week.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
congratulations.
And I journal.
Nice.
I work to keep my connection to God open through my journaling, through my prayers. I make it very deliberate time daily to pray, and I pray all the time now as well. Um, and I also, we're it's there's a social self-care too,
Yes,
like
there is.
we you have to commune with like-minded people who are going to elevate you. And I've been so blessed to connect. You see my background.
Mhm.
Um,
Beautiful.
Thank you. So I'm part of a mother's group that's located here in Prince George's County. And this mother's group is awesome. Beautiful Black women, all ages, who want the best for their kids and the best for our community. And the work that we've done before and during the pandemic is just astounding. In the funds we've raised, we've partnered with community centers, schools, foster agencies. Um, our kids get together, and they're able to build bonds, and that's really hard in the pandemic. And we also pray together. We pray together every week, first thing Monday morning. And through that group, I was able to build some deep connections that just fill me up.
Mhm.
Um, so now I have a diverse set of strategies
Yeah,
that fill me and sustain me.
that's nice. And that community is huge.
Hmm.
That is definitely part of your self-care, that outlet. What about you, Jeanette? What does your self-care look like?
I feel like I was able to take my passion, which is reading,
Mm-hmm.
and turn it into something where people respect me,
Yes.
where people are looking, when people say to me, "Oh my God, it's so awesome. I can't believe you asked me to come on your show." I'm like, huh? I still feel like I'm little Sapphire, you know, but my
Yes,
calendar
yes.
is booked.
Yep.
But and if I put on social media that I have a free day, I can get at least 6 people reaching out to me. I want to come on your show. And I remember looking for people to come on my show, hoping people would come on my show. I was able to take something that I love and help other people. And that's me. I love to help. I love to do things. Before the pandemic, I loved feeding the homeless. I was part of a mission. I'm still a part of it. I'm the head of it. But now, because of the pandemic, we can't do as much as we used to. But I love when authors come to me and go, "Since I was on your show, so many people reached out to me.
Mm.
They want to read my book. I've met so many people through your show. People DM'd me from your show, and I feel like I'm helping. I feel like I'm a helper. Um, I remember people always telling me, you can't save the world. Well, I can try one piece at a time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I always remember an old prejudiced guy on my job when I was pregnant. He was like, teach your son to read. He said, because once he learns how to read, nobody can never take that away from him. He said, people, even when they get amnesia in the hospital, they still know how to read because the brain still has reading in there. And I plan when I retire to help people read. I want people to read. I feel like everyone has the right to learn and to want to read. So my self-care help and my self-care is continuing to help people because that's where I get my satisfaction from. Natalie knows I enjoy talking to the authors. I enjoy reading their books. I enjoy tearing down their characters. I enjoy.
He doesn't tear down the characters. Stop saying that.
Very nice. It's an analysis. It's a character analysis.
She does
there.
it. She does it.
I enjoy so much. Like it's like I never thought that I would meet authors. I always thought like authors were people that were they're over there. I'm a reader. I'm over here. And I feel like through reading, I've connected to them.
Mm.
And I feel like I'm helping people also because I'm helping people to get their dreams out.
Mm-hmm.
So self-care, I also have a great group of friends. And I have friends from when I was 5 to friends that I've met 2 years ago that are my circle. And I feel like people need a circle.
Yep.
I know so many women of color that I've worked with that don't have a circle. And I'm like, where did you go to school? Where are your school friends? You know, where are these friends? Where are that friends? And I feel like you need a circle of friends. You need someone that you can call and say, you know what? Today, I'm going to lay in this bed. And I don't care. I don't care if it's my birthday, I'm not getting up. And for your friend to call you and say, we outside, I suggest you get up and get yourself together because we going out. And you go, they go, don't make us come knock on the door. Don't make your neighbors call the police because you're coming out. And I think that's what people need, and especially women, and especially women of color, because for so many years, we've been told, pushed away from each other, turned against each other. And we love each other.
I mean, look,
if you put little girls in a room together, they will talk.
Mm-hmm. And it's so beautiful.
It is.
It is beautiful. I maybe a few weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago, we finished doing a service project for my mother's group, and it was for the kids. But we came as well to help. And I decided to take the girls, there's 4 of them around my daughter's age, to lunch. And then they can hang out at the house. And one girl was like, oh, I did my own hair this week. I put my own braids in, that's why they look so messy. And the girls were like, oh no, they are beautiful. You did such a great job. Oh my,
That's right.
I had tears in my eyes because it took me 25 plus years to feel and say what my 10-year-old daughter was saying to her friends and what they were saying to each other. Because I agree, Sapphire, like we could be our own worst enemy.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes some true friends and some cathartic healing cries to get that out of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So we can build each other up.
Yeah. And and building that in to the next generation.
Mm-hmm.
Because even though you said it took you well into your 20s to say something that the exact same thing that your 10-year-old said, well, if you hadn't gone through that journey, you wouldn't have had a little girl at 10 who could do that.
Yes.
And to
Yes.
me, that's something
Mhm.
that you really have to acknowledge as far as your own growth, what it means to be the type of mother that you want to be for your daughter, and is bearing fruit. That's what I heard. So I'm going to ask you two additional questions, and it's Jeanette / Sapphire J Blue is going to go first. And I always decide between which one of these I want to answer. And I always do it based on the feelings that I get from the how my guests answered the questions. So I think the best sentence for you is this. And so complete this sentence. I am.
I am a mother. I am a mother who loves, reads, and explores.
Okay. And for Roz, for you, complete the sentence. I love.
I love me and my family
Mhm.
and my God.
Nice. Final question, and we'll begin with Roz, and then Sapphire will answer after. And I ask the same question. I like to end it this way because it's definitely a homage to the title. And I always say that it's totally open to the guest interpretation. So, Roz, what is the color of your resilience?
Purple.
I hear that so much. I don't know what it is about purple. Tell
It's
me about
regal.
purple.
It's
It's
regal.
regal. It's
Yeah,
regal.
it is. It represents sacrifice and rebirth.
Mm. And you have the purple behind you too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so so what about you, Sapphire? What is the color of your resilience?
Blue. I'm Sapphire J Blue. From my birthstone, it's my color. Um, you can be blue and happy.
Mm-hmm.
You can be blue and sad.
Yeah.
Blue to me is a neutral color. You can use it to brighten a room. You can use it to darken a room. And I feel like the sapphire stone is more richer than a diamond, because when you look it through it, it's all blue.
Nice. Beautiful, beautiful. Well, ladies, we're at the end of our time. Wow, wow, wow. I wasn't mistaken putting you two together. Wasn't mistaken at all. I don't know if I'm batting 100 yet with my pairings, but this was definitely a winner. I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank you for your truth. Your heart was in your every answer. And I loved every minute of it. I feel that I know you ladies a lot deeper, definitely a lot more than I did before we had this conversation. I hope you feel the same way. And so I just thank you. I always say at the end, but it comes from such a deep, honest place when I give my guests these thanks. And it's not for this podcast. Even if it wasn't recorded, I would say it because I'm feeling it deeply in my heart. This part is for the podcast. So, audience, thank you for joining us. I hope you got a lot from listening to Rosalind Price, from listening to Sapphire J Blue. Make sure you check out her blog talks. She's wonderful, she's humorous, and she loves her authors. She also loves dinosaurs and dragons, just adding that as an aside. But check her out. Check her out.
Yes.
And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure that you do so. If you haven't liked this video, I have no idea why you wouldn't, because these women are fabulous. So make sure you do that as well. And then just come back here 2 weeks from now, where I'll have 2 more guests, and we're going to talk more about what it means to be Black and African American, more about self-care, and more about resilience. So until next time, stay safe, be healthy, and be resilient. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for listening, and don't forget to like and subscribe. If you want to support me, please visit my website at ndjonesparanormalpleasure.com, where you can find more information about my self-care journals, coloring books, and paranormal romance and urban fantasy novels. If you want to purchase some fun goodies for yourself or a friend, stop by the store tab where I have links to all of my shops. And finally, if you want to stay updated on upcoming events, giveaways, and all things ND Jones, please follow me at ND Jones Author on Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest. Until next time, thank you.